Hey, it's Brian here, and I had some vines left over from that live trap that I made that I was successful with. I actually caught a skunk and a possum, and of course I didn't eat them, I let them go, but it just proved that I could catch something with just a knife out in the wilderness. And anyways, I had some smaller vines left over, and I'm like, hey, why not make like an Easter basket? And I thought, well, how could that possibly be part of survival? Well, I got to thinking about it. If you caught like 3 small fish or something like that, maybe 4, you could put them in that basket, make like a tripod, tie it with vines, build you a fire, and smoke your fish. And of course, you could go out and collect some wild edibles. They're all over the place, like this bullbriar right here behind me. It grows here in Arkansas. Oops, dropped it. Right here in Arkansas, and it produces thorns. It's a real tough vine, but the very tips of it is very tasty. It's really good. It really is. It'd make a great salad on. Okay, here we go. I got the vines that were left over from a live trap, and I got them soaking in some water to soften them up a little bit. And what I did is I cut 4 spokes, and you want to cut these off a little extra long so you don't come up short with your basket. And then what I did is I took some Virginia creeper vine and I tied it in the middle. You could use twine and just tie that any way you can. Just kind of keep wrapping it around and tie it. It's kind of like a knot right there in the middle. And this Virginia creeper, it's 5 leaves. Make sure you don't get poison ivy. Make sure whatever vine you use that it's not poisonous or something. And then like you can see, I got them soaking in water, and we'll get started on it. Okay, right here I've got my spokes, and it's secure in the middle. Now what you want is uneven spokes, so when you weave it around it'll come out right. So that one got broke on the end a little bit, so that's going to be the one I'm going to cut off. And make sure this spoke right here is secure, which it will be when I cut it off right here. Now you see, I have uneven spokes. And by laying it in that wheelbarrow, I put a rock on top of it. And as you can see, some of the limbs have kind of already starting to make kind of a basket shape. They're coming up, they're curled up a little bit. But we've got 7 spokes now, and that's going to work for weaving. Okay, as you can see here, what you want to do is I'm placing this one under, going to hold it there, and I've got one of my smaller vines because it's going to have to make a hard turn. But all we got to do now is just go over, under, and just keep wrapping it around. And like I said, it's going to make a hard bend here. So there's the one that I cut off, and it looks like this vine's going to work just fine. There's the end of it right there already coming back up, so I'm just going to shove it over there to kind of lock it in. So it's under, over, and as you come back around, make sure you're doing it right. Over, under. And as you're doing this, try to keep these spokes kind of even. See how that's wider right there? You want to kind of pull that together. Keep these spokes even as you can. And of course, if you mess up a little bit like I did just then, just back up. It's easy to do. There we go. Got the start of the basket. Under, over, under. All right, I'll get back with you as we get along. And oh yes, remember, see how these spokes are bent a little bit? Try to keep them up like this where it's going to make the shape of the basket. Now you can see how I've got it going here, over and under and over and under. Now what do you do when you come to the end of your little vine? Because you probably won't have a vine long enough to do the whole basket. So right here you can see I went over, under, and what you want to do is jam this in. If you can't do it over that one, then do it over this one. And you just jam it in somewhere. That's okay, you can cut that off later or something. Now, where this one's over, see it's over 2 of them, so you need to jam this your starter vine in here somewhere, and then as this one went over it, jam it in somewhere. You've got to go under this one because you're over the top with that one. Then you continue the over and under and the over and under. So now I'm going to get a longer vine and hopefully I can go farther. I started out with a smaller vine, smaller in diameter and in length, so I could get this going pretty easy. And as you can see, some of these aren't turned up right because that wheelbarrow kind of shaped them a little bit. See, like this one here. So you want to twist that. Probably be a good time to do that, to twist that on up to help make the shape of the basket. Then after a while, you tie these ends up in the shape of your basket. I'll show you that later. Okay, as you can see right here, where I jammed that under there. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jam this in somewhere to just get it started. If that sticks out a little bit, that's okay. We can cut it off later. And then, since the end of this here went over, we want to go under. Want to go under it, and then there we're doing the process. As you can see right there, we're getting ready to go over the top of this one right here. So just over and under and over and under. So you can do this fairly fast. And if you happen to break off a spoke, it's not the end of your basket, because that can happen when you're trying to get them even, which mine aren't real even, but it's even enough to do this basket. Like I said, it's going to be pretty rustic. All you do is, if you break off a spoke, just jam it in there real hard. Get you a piece of vine the length you need and just jam it back in there. It's no big deal. This is pretty fun little deal. You can see how it's going to go pretty fast, and I think it's pretty cool. I gave one to one of my little granddaughters for Easter, and at church she went out and gathered Easter eggs in a homemade basket that Grandpa made. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Like I said, this is kind of a neat little hobby, and you can right, this is willow vines, and you can use willow limbs. If you happen to live in a big city or some place where you can't get a hold of any vines, I'm sure you can get some willow limbs. You could order it online or something, and you can make you a basket. As you can see, right now, it may be about the time to tie these sticks or the spokes up, curl them up and tie them up at the top. That way it starts making the shape of your basket that you want, the bowl shape that you want. So there you have it. I've got the bottom of the basket about the size I want, and you can see you tie it at the top any way you can get it tied up, and you've got the ribs ready to go for the basket. And as you can see, this one's kind of wide, so you could, as you're weaving, you can pull that together to try to, or this one, yeah, you can pull it together to try to keep them a little bit more even. So I found the spot where I left off. Just jam it in. Just go over and under. What makes this a little different is now you're going to have to take the end of it and go in between each one. It's a little bit more difficult. Got to get the end of your vine. Stick it through like that. And you just feed it through. Just keep doing that process. That way you'll have your basket. Well, here's what we got now. And the spokes should be secure enough that I can cut the strings at the top. And then we'll continue to shape up the sides. There, of course, a piece like I talked about, we can cut that off later. It's where I jammed it in last. I'll jam another one in back behind it and continue over and under. As you can see, I cut the strings off, and it's a lot easier to just go over the top instead of feeding it through. Now, one thing you want to be sure and do is pull on this vine tight and push it down as you go around. Keep it as tight as you can. Well, there we have it. I've cut the strings off, and I've woven it around, going over and under, and pull it tight and pull it down as you go along. That's not too bad a basket. I know it's awful rustic looking, and I've still got to cut the ends off and that kind of thing. Now what I'm going to do is you clip each one of these off, leave them a little bit long, and then you turn them and jam them inside the basket, and that helps hold it all together. So I've cut the ends off, leave them fairly long. Then all you got to do is you go the same way with each one as you go around, and you just jam it down in there and secure it. And if it sticks out a little bit, you can clip that off later on. See, there you go. I just took and jammed each one down in there. Real simple. And like this one, it sticks out a little bit right here, you can just clip that off. There you go. Now we'll get to the handle. So here's what you do to make the handle. You tie one end up. You have some pretty flexible vines here, and then you can twist it, leave it extra long, and then what you'll do is you'll jam this in the side of your basket. You might find a place that don't look too good, like that right there. That vine kind of broke and bent up, so that'd be a perfect place to jam it down in there. Any way you can get it down in there, jam it in and out of some of those ribs and stuff, and get that handle to be in there pretty solid. Got to jam it in there pretty good. And then all you got to do is bring it over, jam it in on the other side, cut it off about where you want it, and there you go, you'll have your handle. So there you have it, your basket. Have fun making one. I know it looks a little bit rustic, but that's what makes it cool.